Border images in CSS3 are completely possible. Before CSS3, we used to use extra elements. We would typically position them absolute, or we would use a table or something like that and just change the background and repeat that one image. In that case, we would use 3 or 4 different images, or if possible, a sprite. But now we can use a full image in CSS3, and we tell the browser to split it into 9 pieces, and it will use those 9 pieces to border it. This can be a very difficult concept to grab at first. I'll be open and let you know that border image was a difficult concept for me to grasp at first, so I'm going to try and make this as simple as I can. Again, it's not an easy thing to understand right off the bat. If what I say in this class does not make any sense whatsoever to you, or you're confused even a little bit, try making an image in Photoshop or Paint or something like that. Apply the CSS and just play with it. That's the best advice I can give you. So if we look at it, we have border image is our property, and we're just going to learn the shorthand. So we have our URL, our slice value, and then either repeat, round, or stretch. URL is the URL, kind of like a background image. Actually, it's the same as a background image. The slice value is the value as a percent or pixel to slice the image for the bordering of the top, right, bottom, and left. If you use pixel, do not write px. Just leave it blank. So if you wanted 10 pixel, you'd write 10, not 10px. This is opposite of what we usually do. And then it accepts repeat, round, or stretch. Repeat will tile the sliced parts. Round will tile, but only full tiles. So if your border can fit 1.4 tiles, it's only going to put in 1 tile. Alternatively, it might try to squeeze in 2 tiles, but there will not be 1.4 tiles. Stretch will stretch the tile from top to bottom or from left to right. Now right now this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so let's kind of go into this a little bit more. Quickly going over this again, the URL value is the same as the background image URL, whereas we have border image as our property, URL, and then the location of our image. Slicing the image. And this is the part where I had a lot of trouble. Hopefully I can explain this well enough that you don't have that much trouble with it. So let's begin. The slice value accepts 1 to 4 answers, starting with the top. Goes top, right, bottom, left again. So when you're doing a percent, if you want 20%, you would write 20%. Right could be 20%. Bottom could be 33%, etc., right? But the trick is, with your pixel value, you do not specify the px, so only with percent. So 10%, you'd write like that. If you wanted 10 pixels, you would just write 10. You do not write 10 pixels, because that just won't work. So here again, we use 10, 15, 10, 15. Those are pixels. 10, 15, 10, 15 at the bottom here, all with percent signs, and those are the percents. As far as I know, or as far back as I can remember, I believe this is the only property that does not use the pixel value, being, again, px. So when we slice an image, it gets broken down into 9 parts, 3 rows and 3 columns. Here's an example with some of the code. Our class, border image, we have our border image.gif, that's our image, and we went top 20%, right 20%, bottom 20%, and left 20%, and that would split our image like so. So our top row goes right across like this, the right column goes up and down like this, bottom row like that, and then our left column, which is up and down. So you see we have our 9 sections. If we overlay all of our columns and rows, then our top and our left is going to create a top left section. Top and right is going to create a top right section. And the same thing with bottom. So the bottom row and the left column is going to create a bottom left section. And the right column and bottom row are going to create a bottom right section. What you need to know is this middle part here is not going to be used. That blue part is completely invalid to us right now. So now we use repeat, round, or stretch. Repeat will tile your image sections over and over and over again, just like background repeat will. Each section from our slices are applied accordingly. So what that means is this part here is going to be your right border. This will be your bottom border. This will be your left border, and your top one will be your top border. And the white boxes will be your corners. Round, which is like repeat, but instead of tiling our sections continuously, our sections will only use full tiles. So if our top row could only fit, let's say, 3.9 tiles from this part here, from the beginning of the left side to the end of the right side, and our element could fit 3.9 of these across, it's only going to put 3 of them across. Alternatively, it might use 4. In either case, it will match your bottom image. Stretch is how we do not repeat any of the tiles and simply stretch one tile or one section over the span of the entire row or column. Let's look at some code and apply this so it might make a little bit more sense visually. So here we have just a class. We just named it border image. Our URL is borderimage.png. 20 pixels from the top, 20 from the right, 20 from the bottom, and 20 from the left. And we selected repeat. We gave it a border width of 20 pixels. Before we go on, I want to explain that a border width of 20 pixels is going to create literally a border width of 20 pixels, which is really, really useful when you're creating your 9 sections. So your image up here, we had 20%. So let's just pretend that it was 20 pixels. Then our border image would repeat 20 pixels from the top, right, bottom, and left. This is the original image right here. So TLT, TR, LMR, BL, B, and BR. So top left, top right, left, middle, right, bottom left, bottom right. And that will turn into this. All the T parts are at the top, all the B parts at the bottom, L for left, all the appropriate corners are in there, and every diamond that you see is considered to be one tile. We put this on repeat, so it's going to repeat as much as it can. And you see how the tile was cut off at the end here? With round, it shouldn't do that. Round isn't fully supported yet. If you try and use round and it isn't supported, by default it's going to go to repeat. And here is an example of stretch. So T again for top is all stretched out, right is stretched, bottom is stretched, left is stretched. Our corners are perfectly fine though. So what stretch does is with every tile that we have, it's only going to show one of them and it's going to stretch it all the way across so that there's only one tile per section. So although prefixes aren't used too often, there is an occasional use for them. Let's look at how we can apply the prefixes to Opera, Safari, Chrome, and Firefox. Oh, and as a quick note here, this is not supported in Internet Explorer. So in the event that you're trying this in Internet Explorer and it doesn't work, that's because it's not supported in Internet Explorer. So what we did is we set a border width, then Mozilla, WebKit, and Opera, border image, and then we applied the exact same property to all 3 of them. And we followed the rule. We did border image after the prefixes, and we applied the same thing. So again, it is very, very important to set a border width along with your border image. That's because if your border width is 0 and you have a border image that's, say, 30 pixels wide, it's not going to show anything because, well, your border width isn't there. There's no border. A good trick, if you use equally sized slices, you should use the slice size for the width. What I mean is, the top slice we have is 20 pixels. You might want to consider using border width of 20 pixels, if it's 20 pixels all the way around. And that's really all there is to it. Again, it's kind of difficult to explain the slicing, but hopefully this made sense. If it didn't make sense, feel free to pause it here and copy this code over to your page. Then you can create a regular image for your border image. So what we did here with this image, it's 60 by 60, so 60 wide, 60 pixels high, and each tile is 20 by 20, so 20 pixels by 20 pixels, and that creates a perfect tile. So if you have questions, definitely ask, and definitely play with it. Copy the code over again if you need to, play with it, make it your own. And that's often the best way to learn, is just to make it your own.